Thanks for tuning in to Wilmsfront. Visit timwilms.com or Rational Rise. Broadcasting from the Unshackled Studios in Melbourne. This is Wilmsfront. Brought to you by theunshackled.net. Now here's Tim Wilms.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Wilmsfront. Tonight it is Friday the 11th of October 2019 at 7 p.m. here in Melbourne. We are live on the Tim Wilms YouTube channel, and we're also live on the YouTube enhancement software, which is Entropy, where you can ask us questions if you feel like it, or if I feel like it. I will set a poll question, and best of all, you can send us through super chats, which we will read on air, and you get to support the show as well. I'm joined tonight in the Sydney CBD by Samraat Joshua Grewal, who you're not with anyone anymore, but I think that name speaks for itself.
Yeah, I think it does now. Lots of people know me, I think, reasonably well without any party affiliations, which is good.
Yes, you're 19 and already world famous.
Not really, I wish.
Now, you are out in public. Should we give out your location? Because if someone's nearby, they might...
Sure, I mean, I'm in Central Park, like near Town Hall train station. Pop over. See me awkwardly standing in green fields.
So if Antifa supporter in Sydney is listening live now, yeah, they know where to get you. Live doxing.
Yeah, pretty much.
Now, what's it like there in Sydney at the moment? Because when you agreed to come on the show this morning, we were both under the impression that you'd be home, but of course we know that there's certain speed bumps that are in the city, slowing people down.
Yeah, I mean, compared to Melbourne, Sydney's pretty chill at the moment. There's not many, I haven't seen a single protester today, but I have seen lots and lots of like, just really weird hippie people. And I think Sydney's getting filled up with them more and more by the day. Lots of really weird groups out here.
It's basically like I'm thinking of Dawn of the Dead, but these people, they're claiming they're going to stop us being dead, though they're acting like they are the Dawn of the Dead. Maybe that's their idea. They're trying to warn us that this will happen. Yeah.
I mean, yeah, like I've been around Sydney all day today, and there's posters left, right, and centre in Strathfield, all the way to Bankstown and Blacktown, with like Extinction Rebellion, attend some rally happening in Sydney, either Saturday or Sunday or something. So there's definitely something brewing. Whatever it is, it hasn't happened yet. So I'm looking forward to seeing what dismal protests happen in Hyde Park in the next couple of days.
Well, in Melbourne, we've copped it as well, that it seems in Sydney, they're a lot better there. You've got a somewhat liberal conservative government, and it was 7 News on Monday. I've played it a few times, first on Wilmsfront and then on the Uncockables last night. The New South Wales police just arresting a whole bunch of people and taking them away. It was a great procession to just see them taken away, and it's like, my freedom.
Yeah, I saw a few of those. I think in Melbourne, there's a lot of people gluing themselves to the ground. It's just, what the fuck?
Well, the super glue, it's not strong enough now. They've got pipes which connect, where they've got to, hold themselves together, so it takes hours for police or emergency services to cut them loose. So it's, of course, it's deliberate. At Nick 76 last night said, did you know they have training sessions about this? Well, I didn't know any specific ones, but if they're going to this intense level, then of course I think they've had training about it.
Yeah. I think, I'm not sure if it was in the UK, there was some news channel in the UK interviewing a representative of the Extinction Rebellion. And he was asking her questions about, the climate crisis and alarmism. And one of the questions he asked was, that they're basically saying that we're all going to die in 10 years or something, or 97% of the population will be dead by 2040. He basically presented her facts from the same think it was the UN NPPC report, like a few thousand scientists put together. And he took a few quotes from there saying that their estimates were, the world would end by the year 2100 or something. It was asking her essentially, why are you misquoting the scientists and saying we're all going to die tomorrow? And she had no clue what to say. She was just like, oops, sorry. She had no clue what to say, nothing. She was trying to misquote scientists left, right, center. So it's interesting that, these protesters in Melbourne now, if you actually sit them down and present to them the same scientists they're trying to represent, you find that many of their arguments kind of just fall apart, and all comes down to them just being jobless millennials being paid to protest randomly on the streets.
Your facts don't matter to their insanity.
Yeah, pretty much.
Because you can't have a rational discussion anymore. Well, that's what Andrew Neil did, and also Piers Morgan as well, because his was more of a gotcha interview with the Extinction Rebellion. I'm not sure if she was the leader, but one of their senior people, and he tricked her into getting a chauffeur to the studio, and that was his first question: how'd you get to the studio? And it's like, gotcha.
Checkmate. All that CO2 coming out.
Dia Beltran's in the chat. She's asked, Samraat, are you still Indian?
No, today I'm feeling a little bit more, Sri Lankan, feeling a bit blacker today,
Because you are actually, we talked about this after your first appearance, I think it was back on the Unshackled Waves, that you actually are what's termed colour fluid. Your brown skin, it can go really dark or light. I remember I saw you and Joel were interviewed by Chris De Bruyne, and well, you were like so dark.
Yeah, and like a few days in the sun will like turn me really, really dark, and just out of it for a night or two, then skin reverts back to the kind of brown it is now.
We talked about when Justin Trudeau, his brown face and then later blackface was exposed, that he could have used the colour fluid excuse. And there is that rumour going around that Fidel Castro is his real father, who is, of course, a Hispanic, and Hispanic offspring, even if they're half Hispanic, they can still be very dark. So I could have said, look, this is who my real father is, and so obviously my skin is going to change from time to time.
Fluctuate according to the weather. Yeah, I heard there was another interview done with a member of the Liberal Party in Canada. She was on kind of like a road tour of the country. She was pulled over by some African-American radio host. Essentially, they were asking her about, Justin Trudeau's blackface. And the MP has defended it. She was like, Justin Trudeau's blackface, which took great pride in, shows how much white people want to be like black people. And lots of black people in the country really don't care that he did blackface. And that you see that in the polls that the Liberal Party in Canada is virtually unaffected by the whole scandal. It's just the media blowing it up and trying to pull out some, random racist scandal thin air and make everyone upset about it when no one really is.
Well, ideally, that's how it should be. That fancy dress parties have been around for forever, and obviously Justin Trudeau, he took it quite a bit more seriously than others. And I'm not sure if you saw when he dressed up in full body blackface. It was some teachers' university retreat. Yeah, and it goes down to his pants, and it was Stefan Molyneux who suggested that he was perhaps taking the blackface down there as well.
Yeah.
Which is the reason why Stefan Molyneux suggested that is because he's seen Justin Trudeau sit down and he's got his legs crossed.
Yeah, you can see the ankles.
Yeah.
Not halal.
Yeah, so that's the thing about these scandals these days. They're forensically analysed. I noticed that he's called the poster boy of the Extinction Rebellion movement. I now know his name off by heart.
Justin.
No, I'm going back to Extinction Rebellion now.
Okay.
Yeah. Keep up, man.
Sorry, yeah. It's like an old fart now.
Eric Serge Herbert, the 20-year-old Extinction Rebellion.
Is he the one with like the long hair?
Yeah.
Looks a bit dopey, like he smokes weed every day.
Well, he's on the dole, and apparently he's a couch surfer, like just stays at friends' places, and he's been arrested, bailed, no conviction 11 times now. And the reason why I segued back into that is because there was a photo today in one of the stories about him. I'm pretty sure it's a photo of him because he's actually got like a tanned complexion. He's got white makeup on his face, so looks like whiteface.
Sorry, left being racist themselves.
Yes, but of course that's okay though, because non-whites can't be racist.
Yeah, I haven't heard that before. You know, being white means you're racist through your DNA itself. There's nothing you can change about that. And me being brown, racism impossible for me, man. I'm black.
You're brown.
Yeah, brown, black.
Well, you're brown today.
Brown today, black tomorrow.
The joys of being. Have you got? You've got like a. You know how it was? I think it was Frankenstein who has the things around his neck, the things poking out his neck. Have you got those like buttons there that you can, dials that you can
turn?
Yeah,
changes my complexion like a chameleon. Yeah, no, like even with me and my family, you know, in personal conversation with family members, I sometimes drop the N-word here and there. No one really cares. With my sister in NZ, she's actually the polar opposite of me. She's I like to describe her as, you know, a raging feminazi. And sometimes when I talk to her, I accidentally drop the N-word here and there. And she just rips at me, calling me racist. And don't you understand black history and black oppression? And I'm like, I'm just trying to have a fucking conversation. I don't care about black history right now. I'm just trying to see how you're doing. Yeah, so
but that's, if somebody called you that, they're illiterate.
Yeah, like even if someone calls me nigger, like who cares? It's just a fucking word.
I know that the S word, that's known to trigger you.
Which one is that? The street shitter?
Yeah.
Only because people assume I'm born in India and that it will insult me. That makes me more insulted. Like they just have such a shitty insult that insults me that they couldn't think of something more kind of tailored to me.
They need to get their insult out of the gutter.
Yeah, it's like if I call you it's like if I call a French person a wog. They're not. You know, it's not an insult you apply to French people, and a French person might be insulted because I don't know he's French and don't know the correct insults for French people.
Well, my family history background is German, and well, I get called a Nazi anyway.
Yeah.
Which I've done my family tree. There's no confirmed Nazis in my family tree, FYI.
Okay. Hey, one of my history teachers, her uncle was actually her dad was granddad was in the SS. It was interesting. Yeah, it was just some random thought that popped in my head.
She might have to pay because you know how some Democrat candidates in the primaries suggesting that reparations.
Yeah.
So maybe those of German descent should still pay reparations for World War II because there's intergenerational trauma, and so there must be intergenerational complicitness.
Yeah. I mean, I'm still traumatized from Alexander's little incursion into India. You know, I think I should get some reparations from all those Macedonians in what's it called now? Fyrom, Northern Macedonia. Us Indians should get reparations from half the world.
Yes, we just need to do a global guilt transfer.
Yeah. All right, I think everyone will be paying reparations to everyone else. Like, there isn't anyone in the world who isn't, you know, subject to some fucking war in history. Like, get over it, guys. The past is the past.
Well, apparently we should be giving some form of payment to the Kurds because United States President Donald Trump has announced that he's not withdrawing, he's moving US troops from Northern Syria for the basic reason that ISIS has been defeated there, and that's the reason that they were there. And so if you defeat your enemy, you leave.
Yes. I think, on that point, see, I supported, completely support Trump's policy platform of leaving Syria once war's over. But I think that now the situation's kind of changed. And I think that, if the Turks do take ground in what is now kind of Kurdistan, there is a very high possibility that ISIS could come back. So for the sake of not having ISIS come back, I actually think that Trump should take the advice of his military advisors and other Republicans, which is to stay a little bit longer in Syria. It's
always, that's the argument with all the wars, like with Afghanistan and Iraq. We need to just stay there a few years longer, a few years longer after that. There's always an excuse not to withdraw. And if the United States doesn't pull, or the president doesn't pull out at any time, there's never going to be a right time. And yes, and you say his advisors, you mean his deep state neocon advisors.
I mean, look, in the past there were times when the United States should have pulled out, like the end of the Iraq War. They shouldn't even gone into Afghanistan, etc. And during those times, America should have kind of pulled their troops out and left the countries alone. But now the situation is different. With Iran, there were rumors of weapons of mass destruction, which were proven to be wrong. But in Syria right now, in camps across where Kurdistan is now, there are ISIS fighters in those camps. There are women and children who still pledge allegiance to the caliphate in huge refugee camps where the Kurdish forces are. And if the Turks come in and eradicate the Kurdish forces, I don't believe that they have the logistics and administrative ability to keep those ISIS fighters contained. And it is a really, really valid reason to keep American forces there and prevent the Turks from stepping across the border, to prevent a resurgence of ISIS.
But why is that the United States' role? Why should they do that?
Well, simply because the United States has committed themselves to it. They committed themselves to allying with the Kurds in fighting back ISIS. And you can't just dump your allies, when it suits you. If you make a commitment to a war, you have to see the war to the end. You can't just do a France and surrender halfway through it.
But President Trump, he inherited this war. There's been the United States, they shouldn't have gone into Afghanistan, Iraq, Libya, and Syria. But in all of those occasions, because I'm young enough to remember Afghanistan and Iraq, the argument always was from the political establishment, well, whether you approve the decision to go to war or not, we should stay until the end. And that's the justification. I mean, Iraq, they're having anti-government riots there at the moment when democracy was installed in 2003-4. So by your logic, there's always going to be some instability that the United States, because they made a commitment once. I mean, are you saying that this is some sort of marriage vow, that the United States should be married to this alliance for life?
Well, I mean, the issue here isn't just the fact the United States did commit to it and should see it through because they've kind of caused the shitstorm there with their involvement anyway, but also the fact that, unlike Iran, which, if left unchecked, would have done nothing because they had no weapons of mass destruction. But in this scenario, if left unchecked and Turkey does cross the border to Kurdistan and ISIS rebels happen to get out of those camps, because we know that Erdogan isn't explicitly against ISIS, there is a huge chance that there will be a resurgence of the Islamic State, which would destabilize the whole region. You'll have Iran then, claiming war on Syria to stop ISIS. You have Saudi Arabia intervening. You might have Israel crossing the border too. What I see happening is if Turkey crosses the border, the situation is going to get much, much worse. And if we want oil, because Americans love oil, you have to fucking keep stability in the region. And the only way to do that is to make sure all those ISIS fighters and refugee camps in Syria are contained and not put into the hands of the Turkish government, which I don't trust, and I don't think many other people in Western countries trust either. But do you trust Erdogan to not, or to take care in keeping those ISIS people locked up.
I don't trust any world leader.
Well, I think America's doing a much better job because they have a huge incentive to keep them locked up. Islamic leaders like Erdogan have no incentive to keep the caliphate locked up.
You've mentioned, because I mentioned the 4 wars that the United States has got into in the 21st century, but now they're responsible for what Turkey does as well. And I also haven't, even I forgot it, the Forgotten War, which is the war in Yemen, where Iran is backing the Houthi rebels, and Saudi Arabia has got a blockade, basically trying to starve the nation into submission. So that's a secret proxy war that's happening. So that's a 5th war there.
Yeah.
But wars in one nation, they of course spill over to all surroundings there. And how does it continue to be? And this is why Trump he's come back to the reason that he's made this decision is because he made an election commitment that America would stop being the world's policeman. He didn't want troops dying anymore. I'll actually play because he probably gave it was a really good speech about why he was sick of all the foreign wars. Well, at least this war in Syria. He gave this at the White House. I'll just play this.
I'll tell you, the hardest thing I have to do, by far, much harder than the witch hunt, is signing letters to parents of soldiers that have been killed. And it's not only that, in areas where there's not a lot of upside, if there's any upside at all, and in many cases there's only downside. And especially when that soldier was killed in a blue-on-green attack. You know what that is, right? That's where a soldier being trained or whatever turns his gun on an American soldier. Here, son, take your gun. You know how to use it. And he takes the gun and he turns it and he shoots one. We have many of them in Afghanistan, in particular in Afghanistan. The hardest thing I have to do is signing those letters. That's the hardest thing I have to do. And each letter is different. We make each letter different. And last week I signed 5 of them for Afghanistan, 1 in Iraq, 1 in Syria from 2 weeks ago. And sometimes I call the parents. Sometimes I see the parents. I go to Dover when I can, but it's so devastating for the parents that, it's so devastating. When they bring that boy or young woman out of the back of those big, powerful planes in a coffin, and the parents are there. We have people that do that. That's what they do. They work that. They accommodate everybody. That's what they do. They do an incredible job. And I said, the parents seem to be okay. I'll get there early. The parents seem to be okay. Well, actually, sir, they aren't. No, the way they're talking, they're really okay, aren't they? Sir, you never know until the back of that massive cargo plane opens up and they walk down holding a coffin with 4 or 5 great soldiers on each side of it representing our various forces. That you never know. And then I see it. And I see people that were smiling. Oh, Mr. President, thank you for being here. Thank you for being here. And I think they're doing great. And then 20 minutes later, we'll be outside when that big plane pulls up and that door comes down. And they are walking the coffin with their boy inside this coffin with an American flag over the top. And they're walking that coffin down this ramp. And I've seen people that I thought were really incredible the way they would. I didn't even understood how they could take it so well. Scream like I've never seen anything before. Sometimes they'll run to the coffin. They'll break through military barriers. They'll run to the coffin and jump on top of the coffin. Crying, mothers and wives crying desperately. And this is on these endless wars that just never stop. And there's a time and there's a place, but it's time to stop. And just to finish, last Friday I went to Walter Reed and I gave out 5 Purple Hearts to incredible young men, in this case, all men. And they took a beating. Beautiful people, they took a beating. One couldn't be there because the beating was so great that he was at a totally different part of the world. He lost a leg, he lost an arm. Ryan, he had tremendous damage beyond even what these young folks went through. But I'll tell you what, for me, it's very hard when I see that. It's very hard. It's easy to talk tough, tough guys, all these tough guys. Let's keep fighting, let's keep fighting. If they had to go to Walter Reed, where they do unbelievable work, I have to tell you, these doctors are unbelievable. It's easy to say, oh, they're the best in the world. I've never seen anything like it. One young man last week had his nose rebuilt. And they said it was in 1,000 pieces. And I said, so where were you hurt? He said, my face, sir, was almost obliterated. I said, you have a better face than I do. He said, sir, I had a doctor who was unbelievable. And they put it together. He said 1,000 fragments. Now, I don't know if that's even possible, but 1,000 fragments. And they put it together. And his father, who was crying, came up to me and said, you're not going to believe this, but my son didn't have a great-looking nose, and now his nose is better. Okay? It's an amazing thing. But when you see these at the Purple Hearts, you see this kind of thing, and I see a lot of it at Walter Reed. And again, the job those doctors and the people do at Walter Reed, it's something to be commended. Thank you all very much. Thank you.
Well, that was quite touching to see in its entirety, because every United States president has done what he's done, but he's the only one who's shown the humanity that these are real American soldiers who are dying, getting mutilated. There's the grieving family. There's the doctors who've got to put these limbs or whatever else back together. And that's the reality of war. We talk about troops and tanks and drones, but there's all those caskets that come back to the United States draped in the American flag. And Trump he believes in America first. And what's America first about? Sorting out all the different ethnic, religious, all those tensions in the Middle East. And you mentioned oil there. The United States, they did learn something from Iraq, and that they needed to become less dependent on oil. And there's been the fracking revolution in the late 2000s. Trump, he's wound back environmental regulations to allow more mining, more natural minerals and energy so that the United States can be fully energy independent. And that Saudi oil attack by the Houthi rebels, which was supposedly going to cripple world oil, well, went up about 35 cents in Australia during the school holiday period, and that was it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so what do you say to that?
Yeah, I mean, look, it's a hard one because if there was a war in, say, Austria, like just randomly Austria, okay? Australia was in the war supporting an Austrian rebel group, and we just kind of pulled out of the war. Like, no one else is going to trust us. We allied with the group, and we just pulled out the war because, soldiers dying left, right, and center. Yeah, they're sacrificing lives. But we made a commitment to a group to ally with them. Not just that, but if you look at, World War II, say Britain just pulled out of the war halfway through once France was taken. Like, what the fuck, dude? Like, you have to look forward. If you look forward, if America pulls out of this war, sure, they'll save some lives and not have to commit American troops, American money to Syria. But then, ISIS gets a stronghold again. ISIS takes over Syria. Maybe there's a war between Saudi Arabia and Iran and ISIS knocks over one of those pillars. Iran wasn't about destroying America. ISIS is about destroying America. So I think staying there is about defeating an existential threat to the entire USA. And that's what people aren't really realizing this time around.
Well, ISIS stands for the Islamic State of Iraq and Syria, a very specific region. There is, of course, the online Islamic State, which inspires all the lone actors in Western nations who've gone on stabbing, shooting, car, truck rampages throughout the past 5 years. But that is just, that's a homegrown threat. That's not being directed by the ISIS leadership. And that's just your theory about what's going to happen.
So if you look at history, ISIS is more than just an Islamic State of Syria and Israel or Levant, whatever you want to call it. ISIS is a self-declared caliphate. If you look at caliphates in history, what does it mean to be a caliphate of a khalifa? It means that your empire, your country, your nation is meant to be at the top of the Muslim world, top of the Islamic world. Every other Muslim nation is meant to recognize your authority, and if not, then you go and conquer them. The Ottomans were the caliphs, then every country in the Islamic world kind of submitted to them. You know, the Umayyad Caliphate, you had all the Muslim countries submitting to them. The Abbasids, all the Muslim countries submitting to them. If ISIS gets reformed, their goal is to have all of the Muslim world, Algeria, Iran, Saudi Arabia, to have all the Muslim world submit to them and refer to them as a caliphate and as the leaders of the Muslim world. And if not, well, then they get invaded and they go and make them submit to the caliphate. So that's what people don't understand, because many people in the West don't understand Islamic ideology and what it really means to ISIS. And that's where ISIS crosses borders from Syria to Iraq. They're not just bound to one country, because they're trying to establish domination of the Muslim world.
Yes, and that's decent geopolitical analysis, but then I bring it back to the question, why is it America's business, why does Australia's business that we have to sort out this region? Why, like, we might not like that if a caliphate emerges, like, we're not going to like that, but we don't have to live there. I mean, it's still going to be the same people living there. It's just a regime change.
Yeah, I'll tell you why it's important. Because when you have the Abbasid caliphates and the Turks coming up as the Ottoman Empire, when the West and the East neglected them, when the Chinese emperor said, oh, who cares about these Muslims in the West? And the Westerners said, oh, who cares about these Muslims in the East? What happened was these Muslim caliphates then conquered Christian kingdoms, Persian kingdoms, Indian kingdoms, and they kept pushing further and further into the West, further into the East, bringing death and destruction wherever they went, because people simply said, it's not our problem, it's all over there. And that threat, once it grows, comes to your doorstep. And then what happens? Well, you're the last guy who said, no, not my problem. And now you're standing alone because all your allies who are going to fight with you against the Muslims are now fucking dead and destroyed and gone. That's what happened to the East Roman Empire, right? The Germans, the French, the Brits, after a few crusades and losing, decided, we can't keep this up, and pulled out. Ottomans came along, crushed the Eastern Roman Empire, pushed into Serbia, all the way up into fucking Austria, into Vienna. That's how far they got, because people in the West said, not our problem, mate, you deal with yourself. We've got our own problems to deal with. That's just my opinion. If you want to live your nice lifestyle in America, live relatively peaceful in Australia, you gotta recognize that these guys, while they're in the Middle East, they're slowly crawling every day closer and closer to your doorstep, and your head's going to be rolling soon, and your children are going to be raped by their Muslim conquerors. It's just, I would rather not have that happen to me, and I reckon that Americans would rather not be beheaded by ISIS in the next kind of 50 years because they neglected to shut them down when they could.
Well, Australia and the United States, in case you forgot, is a sovereign nation, and we're supposed to have immigration controls, and that's what Donald Trump has done as well. One of his first executive orders was a travel ban from 7 predominantly Muslim nations, and that got held up in the courts for a while, but eventually decided in his favor. And this is what I support as well. They can run the Middle East how they want. What you're saying is they're going to come for us. Well, we've got to have a strong national defense, not attack. We've got to make sure we have secure borders, not just to keep out invaders in terms of armies and that, but people who are not going to integrate into our culture and could pose a security threat.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you could do that. The Indians did that. The Chinese did that. The Byzantines did that. The French and Germans and Spanish did that. The Italians did that. Waited until the enemy came to them. I think there's some random Asian scholar, Confucius, some crap, who was like, said that, the best defense is to be on the offense. And I would rather we fight them over there in the Middle East than have their war come here and disrupt the peace we have in Australia and the United States. And that's just my opinion, the opinion of many of the deep state advisors to Trump. So would you agree, Tim, that you'd rather fight wars in Syria and Iraq than fight wars in Australian soil?
Well, I don't certainly support pre-wars. That's because we've talked a lot about pre-crime, which is if you think somebody could potentially commit an offence, then you should charge them with a crime before the crime actually happens, but the crime actually hasn't happened itself. So you're advocating a form of pre-war, which if you think that some
really.
nation,
See,
some
war.
war.
That's kind of, So pre-crime is more like, I think you're going to commit a crime because of, some random attributes and I arrest you to stop doing it. Like maybe you're crazy or maybe you're like high on ice and I think, maybe you're going to go kill someone. But the issue here is that there is intention to commit a crime. When you intend to commit a crime, you make plans to do it, you can get arrested for that as well. And ISIS, an Islamic ideology, intends on world domination. Just saying, it's like in the Quran. So it doesn't fucking matter if we think they're going to commit a crime. They're going to come and they're going to try and kill us. They've done it for the last 1,400 years of history. I don't know why people in the West think they're going to change all of a sudden and, be peaceful in the Middle East and enjoy their Syria and Saudi Arabia. It's fairy tale thinking to believe that they're not going to do what they've been doing for the last 1,000 years.
I'll provide another example. India is next to Pakistan. They're the same race of people, but Pakistan is an Islamic republic and India is a multi-ethnic, multi-religious state. India has had a Islamic republic right on its doorstep since 1959, I think, when it was declared an Islamic republic. India is still intact because it defended itself. It's got nuclear weapons. I'm actually in favor of a country having nuclear weapons because mutually assured destruction actually keeps the world safe. The reason why we had a Cold War between USA and USSR because not a hot war is because there were nuclear weapons, and if a hot war ever occurred, both sides knew that it was going to be the end of the world.
Yeah, but see, throughout history, war bowls, right? You go from sword to sword in the field warfare to musket warfare to trench warfare to just fucking blitzkrieg tanks rolling over cities kind of warfare, and nuclear deterrence works. When we had.
Oh, lost you there, Samraat. We're still online, aren't we? Samrat's there. So if you have a question for Samraat when he comes back, because I've put the entropy link again in the chat just then, so you can ask Samraat a question or send through a super chat. While he's silenced, he's not doing himself a lot of favor with the audience here, because I know a lot of them have said for him to go back home, and he's spoken tonight quite like a globalist, which I don't think is really endearing him much to the audience. But Samrat's entitled to his opinion, and we've got plenty of white neocons in Australia who've made their opinions heard this week. I just saw Peter Credlin on Sky News last night, who said that Donald Trump was wrong. Oh, here he comes.
Sorry.
Yes.
I think the South Tower crashed down or something.
Yeah.
So wars changed, and nuclear deterrence isn't going to stop ISIS fires from ISIS, whatever caliphate there is. from infiltrating the country and, putting plants. Like, okay, say ISIS re-emerges, right? And they don't attack anyone, right? Like, Islamic State's peaceful in the Middle East, but then they fund terrorists in Australia. What are nukes going to do to terrorists in Australia? Like, you can't use nukes unless the country's actually declared war on you. And that's what we're seeing more and more. We're seeing more proxy wars, and we're seeing more wars fought within a country itself, against itself. And so it's harder and harder to use those nukes. And the reason why India and Pakistan have a decent relationship is because Pakistan hasn't got a strong caliphate ideology in it, right? But it's slowly getting more and more radical, and sooner or later there'll be a resurgence of a caliphate ideology, and then Pakistan will become more and more aggressive. And they are still aggressive. There's always border incursions from India to Pakistan, Pakistan to India. So it's not peaceful there either, right? Muslims always attacking Indians, Indians always attacking back.
Well, Pakistan was the nation that harbored Osama bin Laden for many years, so they're pretty awful. We'll see how the former Playboy cricketer Imran Khan does as the new Islamic Republic leader. But I feel that we're going a bit around in circles now. Your opinion on the Hong Kong China dispute? The pro-democracy Hong Kong protests are still continuing. They were joined by Liberal MP Tim Wilson on the weekend, which caused a bit of a triggering back home because the Australian government doesn't have a position. And there's this famous tweet from Tim Wilson 8 years ago about the Occupy Melbourne people, where he said freedom of speech doesn't equal freedom be heard, time wasters send in the water cannons, which they tried to smear him with that this week. But given we've seen Extinction Rebellion pretty much behave in the same manner that Occupy did 8 years ago, I think that old tweet resurfacing probably made him more popular. But that's just a bit of a sidetrack 2 cents from me. Yeah, James Fox Higgins, he's caused a lot of outrage on his page by saying that if you're not a Hong Konger or Chinese, it's none of your business.
I mean, yeah, partially it's true. This is a matter in which I think a country like the US does need to get involved in. They're not committed to any side. They're not in a war with anyone or explicitly allied to one side or the other. So it's an issue that we can stay out of, but I don't think there's anything wrong with other countries supporting one nation or the other, or one movement or the other. Like, if you want to vocally support Hong Kong, go for it. If you want to vocally support China, go for it. But in terms of intervening, I think we should all kind of stick out of that one.
Why?
Then because we haven't committed. We haven't committed to any side, and I don't think it's something we should commit to. There's no value in us committing to a side. Whether Hong Kong remains freely democratic or is taken under China's wing, there isn't really a benefit to Australia and the United States in saving it or not saving it. Like, let it be. Don't police Hong Kong if you're not already at war with someone in regards to it. This is something we should kind of just not interfere with.
I'll repeat again because it still sounds like you're talking about war commitments like marriage. Engaging in a war, it's not like a marriage till death. Well, a lot of wars are till death do us part. But we've got a few other topics that we want to talk about on this Friday evening, though I think we had a pretty good exchange of ideas.
Yep.
Oh, Dear Beltran's got another question. Samraat, do you identify as a conservative fascist?
What's that mean? What the fuck is a conservative fascist? Conservatism and fascism are two drastically different things. I don't identify as a conservative because I'm not conserving the current state of things. I don't identify as a fascist because fascism is a very different ideology as well.
So you actually do know what fascism is?
Yeah, of course not.
It's not just a meaningless word anymore.
No.
I know what fascism means as well.
What's
the proper definition?
What's fascism to you, Tim?
Fascism is when the state works together with corporations. Well, the state still has the ultimate authority. There's the pretense of capitalism, but it's the state who calls the shots, and the corporations, they work hand in hand with the state to direct the economy, which that kind of sounds like some of the economies today. That is proper fascism, real fascism.
Real fascism.
Yes.
There's also a strong kind of nationalistic facet to fascism, whether that's ethnic, religious, racial, which is also very important in that. And the fascist symbol, bunch of sticks like a fag tied together. Yeah, that's also what fascism is. You have to have some sort of group identity you're pushing for as well.
As somebody's also said in the chat, it was... Who was it? Jupiter Chrismic has said, did South Park get panned in China too? Yes, the South Park creators, Matt Stone and Trey Parker, they made an episode about Chinese censorship, and it got censored in China, proving their point. And now there's this big controversy with the NBA sports league in the United States. They've got a big viewership in China now, and one of the owners expressed his support for the pro-democracy protesters in Hong Kong, and they've threatened to black out the games in China, the CCP, and so the NBA's it's a classic corporate virtue signaling conundrum, because, well, corporations should always be interested in making money, and as I said last night, should they virtue signal and stand up for rights per se, or should they just be concern themselves with making profits within the laws of that the jurisdictions that they're in?
Yeah, I mean, it's a tricky one as well. Like, your corporation, you should have the right to, if you have the right to kind of choose how your company looks and what you want associated with your company, etc. So I don't actually blame corporations for policing their ranks. I don't think it's good, and I don't think you should do it. But there isn't explicitly anything unethical about wanting your corporation to look a certain way and have a certain political leaning.
Somebody commented in the chat as well that you constantly moving, it's making them dizzy. I'm actually feeling
really? Sorry.
a bit wheezy now.
I'll find a spot to stand.
I'm not sure if anyone's vomited on air before. That's a new one.
Yeah.
But I noticed that it's dark where you are now. Did you manage to use your magical power to make the sky dark as well?
Yep, black in the sky, like I do my face.
So
a special button to summon my mega powers.
You've said a lot of bad words tonight.
I have. I mean, fuck it. I can't be bothered policing myself anymore.
Oh, well, there is the YouTube police.
Yeah, they're bad.
But I noticed that Candace Owens, she whenever she says something controversial and she gets banned from social media, she's always able to get out her race card and get out.
Yeah.
But
if I can do that.
Yeah, because she always jokes that she's called a black-white supremacist, which she clearly can't be. But I really liked her testimony before. There was another congressional committee where she said the white supremacy is real, but it's such a fringe ideology. It's not a threat at all, and so I'm not going to even bother condemning it. This is what you should be really focusing on. And so she just totally said, I'm not going to even indulge it. It's so fringe. This is, if you really wanted to help black people, you do all this. And it was just so excellent.
Absolutely right. I've just come to realize myself that people who are generally white supremacists or whatever, number in the hundreds in Sydney. There's the movement is fucking small. So I don't know what everyone's raving on about. We should be more concerned with I don't know, Muslims, something like that. Just my 2 cents. There's more of them than there are radical white people.
I've also seen quite a number of whites on the ground this week in the Extinction Rebellion protests. It seems to be a very white movement. There's all these white people lying on the ground.
Yeah. I mean, white's the most racist people in the world, and white's the most snowflakish. You guys are a paradox, man. You guys gotta sort your shit out. Either fucking be white supremacists or be black lovers. Can't be both. Can't have it both ways.
Now, what's also been in the news this week is Ida Buttrose. She was appointed by Scott Morrison as the new ABC chairwoman, because it used to be back in the old days the chairman. Well, now it's the chair or chairperson, chairpeople. But I still use the gendered word. She's the chairwoman. She is highly respected in Australian media. I mean, she launched Clio magazine in the 1970s, which I know somebody like you would consider a degenerate publication because it got girls all fuzzy down in there with its nude centerfolds. And she went on to host radio in the 1980s. She also, I'm probably leaving a whole bunch of her biography out, but she returned to television with Studio 10 for a number of years. So she's also an Australian of the Year. How could I forget that? She's basically respected by everybody. That's the good thing about these TV boomers, is that they've been around long enough that everyone still likes them because it was before everything was political. But she said two things about the ABC this week: that it's too politically correct, we need to get back the Aussie larrikin spirit, but it's also too white, we need some diversity. So it seems she wants a politically incorrect non-white person on the ABC. I could think of somebody who could apply. I'm looking at him now.
Oh yes, indeed. I could play both votes. Be the token brown and be the politically incorrect one.
Oh, hey, you got a copy of
Where do
Mein
I
Kampf.
apply?
Yeah, you got a copy
Send
of
me the
Mein
link.
Kampf on SBS.
Yeah, that counts something, right?
So yeah, get your application in, or if anyone from the ABC is watching this, Samraat, he's
I would love to work for you.
He's a perfect candidate. I think you're missing something out of your live audition.
What's that?
There's a famous sort of sign. Yes, that. Yeah, that's what you need in the audition. I also heard today that because not only are there the Democrat presidential primary debates, which are hosted by the big networks, but all the different US cable networks now, because they've got 24 hours to fill, they're all hosting these candidate town hall meetings, and they're focused on specific issues. So there was a climate one involving the Democrat candidates where basically any questioner could come up with the most ludicrous thing, saying, will you curb meat eating? And they all said yes. Now they've had an LGBTQ town hall CNN. And I haven't been able to bring myself to watch it. It's just because apparently an answer was not satisfactory enough for Beta O'Rourke was asked about transgenderism, and he gave what he thought was a woke answer, and there was some transgender in the crowd who stole the microphone and ranted at him. So Beta O'Rourke, who is the most cucked candidate on the Cuck News Network, it wasn't enough. And I watched a bit of when Camilla Harris came on. She said, my pronouns she, her, and hers. And then Chris Cuomo, he said, they're mine too. Like does he mean that my pronouns are normal? Is that what he was saying? That I just have normal pronouns?
All right, yeah, like even now I'm working in sales for a bit, and when you're filling out the forms, I have to ask people, are you a Mr. or Mrs. Just because I don't want to get fired now, like, for misgendering people. And surprisingly, most people just laugh and like, why are you asking me that? Like, they look like a woman? I'm like, no, but never know. So most people in Sydney actually don't really give a fuck about this whole gender pronoun crap that the media pushes.
But you only just need one to misgender, and you'll be taken before the a discrimination tribunal, and you'll be fired, labelled a bigot.
Yep. All it takes, but yeah, it's like, I still ask, what's your pronouns? Most people just fucking laugh at me and like, what are you on about, mate? So yeah. I dread the day in which a man says he's a woman or a woman says he's a man.
Clark He has said in the live chat, Tim, how come there's no super chat capability on this stream? And Bieber Anti-Bullying has said he needs 1k subs. Well, if you've been paying attention to the beginning of the show, you would know that I use a workaround for the time being, which is Entropy. I'll put the link in the chat again. That's how you can send me a super chat. I remember your super chat on Tuesday evening on Trans Tasman Talk, Clarky. You sent through 10 New Zealand dollars, so your name stands out to me. So please feel free to jump onto Entropy, and it only accepts US and Canadian dollars, but if you're in the mood, please go ahead. All right, now another bit of madness that's gone on in the news today, which is, yes, Clementine Ford. We all remember her as Australia's most famous fright-bat feminist. She wrote an article today, I wish I was hot enough to be sexually assaulted. Which is basically because she gets trolled on social media by men saying, I wouldn't even rape you.
Yeah.
But it flies in the face of what feminists have told us for years, that it's not about sex, it's about power. And because it's all based on, apparently another feminist told her that a man said, I was going to spike your drink to rape you, but you were too ugly. So, are they admitting now that it is based on looks?
I think so, yeah, probably.
Because I recall that there was this feminist quite a number of years ago. She'd convicted multiple men on false rape allegations, and her photo was plastered all over the news, and people just looked at her. She was quite, to say politely, quite big.
Yeah.
But the judge and jury believed her every time. Yeah, so that was an interesting contribution from Clementine. And speaking of feminist issues, White Ribbon, the Anti-Domestic Violence Foundation, it went into liquidation last week. And
oh, really?
Despite the fact that it had all this goodwill, all these ambassadors, it had a staff of 29. I think it had an annual budget of multiple millions, but it still managed to go broke. Which shows that, well, what were these 29 staff doing, and where were you allocating the money?
Yeah. What the heck? Or some... Fuck. That's crazy, I didn't know that. 29 staff. What do you use 29 staff for? What? How can you send me staff?
Yes, because I refer to a lot of, because a lot of these charities, they operate like sales and marketing firms.
Yeah.
Like I refer to as Charity Inc. because a lot of them, I see them all the time. These, like the Peter Mac Foundation, they have the aggressive salespeople, and it's almost like they're trying to sell you like a Thermomix or some sort of milkshaking machine.
Yeah, I mean, most people you see with charities pushing for them don't actually work with charities, they work for separate sales and marketing companies that charities then pay a few $100K to go out in the streets and be like, hey, I'm from House of No Steps, or hey, I'm from like White Ribbon, please buy this raffle ticket, give me money. Yeah, most of them don't even work for charities themselves.
Nick has said the UN is going broke too. Yes, it is. They've said that they could run out of funds in a couple of weeks. I'm so sad to hear about that.
Wonder why.
So you're saying that
been cut.
even though they had Greta Thunberg global address at the UN, I thought that would have got some people to throw a few more extra millions at it.
We just cut some of those crappy departments out. There are too many departments in the UN they don't need.
Well, yes. Well, they can. It's not that they're unnecessary departments. It's just that they're joke departments, like the UN Human Rights Council.
Commission.
Well, there's the Human Rights Council, Commission, High Commissioner. There's all these. There's so many different. And that's why people pick you up. Oh, you said the UN Human Rights Commission. You mean the Human Rights Council? What's that? Why not just have one overall body, so we don't getting caught up in this alphabet soup of UN acronyms?
Yeah.
I think we should finish off with probably a naming and shaming, because you've recently
I'd like to name
launched...
Dia Beltran. She is... I'd like to shame her for being a woman.
Shame her for being a woman. Oh, well...
She wanted a shout out, so there's her shout out. There you go, Dia. There's your shout out on there.
There was a man who was convicted of sexually assaulting a young girl at a Kmart in Brisbane. So this man, Sterling Mervyn Free, well, he's not free now, but he was only given 8 years in prison for this abduction and sexual assault, and will be eligible for parole in August 2021.
Yeah, it's fucked. I think the average sentence in Australia for these types of cases is like 6 months to a year. So you got more than the average person, but it's not surprising that these cases don't get the justice they need.
And Peter Dutton has said that the sentence is an outrage. You cannot have a young girl taken and put in a situation that no parent could ever imagine for their child. For a child that's sexually abused or abducted, for somebody to get essentially a penalty of 2.5 years is unacceptable. So Judge Julie Dix, she said Free's offending was every parent's worst nightmare, but still gave that sentence.
Yeah, far out.
So
Bunch of hypocrites. I'm fully convinced that the entire court system is just full of pedo sympathizers that are... Fuck, they're everywhere, these pedos. They're in the military, they're in the police force, schools, you name it.
And I also nearly forgot there was another dangerous sexual predator who's been convicted of sexual assault. This is James Griffith, 19, who is from Manchester. He was a shy and awkward student. He touched a teenage girl in an attempt to befriend her. He Googled how to make a friend and then came into contact with the 17-year-old, doing 2 attempts to engage her in conversation. The victim burst into tears during the second encounter and went to police with her mother, claiming that Griffiths would have touched her breast if she had not moved away. She claimed her schoolwork suffered, and as a result of the contact, leaving her unable to sit her mock exams and apply for Oxford University. So Griffiths, he said he clumsily approached the girl in an attempt to make a friend, but the words didn't come out right. So basically like all of those nervous teenage boys in all of those movies that they used to make. Yeah, so he faces 10 years in jail and being on the sex offenders register. So the girl, she said, I saw him facing a hedge and thought it was really weird. As I walked towards him, he suddenly swung around so he was facing me. As soon as he moved, I moved and said, stop. He touched my arm. I sort of jolted out of the way. And then he went into the road. And then I went into the road to avoid him. And he very quickly walked away. So he obviously got the message that she didn't appreciate the advance. And so he moved away. Yes, and there was a second encounter. He suddenly moved to walk in front of me, looked me straight in the eye, and touched me on my side and walked off. Now, I just want to, because I saw this in a Daily Mail article this morning. So, should this sex offender get the death penalty?
Yeah. Oh, no. Sorry. Wait. No. That's something for more serious stuff. Like, stuff like this is like, like, he should be put in a mental institution. The poor guy's probably got autism or something, or some kind of severe case of something.
Well, he just, he didn't grab her, he touched her,
Yeah.
and then realized when it was...
Yeah, like, obviously he's got some kind of social issues. He doesn't really know social boundaries. So I think for these cases, people like this need help. Oh, whoa, what happened there?
Yeah. Oh, I'm bringing the article over
okay.
because
I was like,
this James Griffiths, he looks like somebody we know. Who does that look like? Can you see him here? Can anyone tell?
Yeah, who does it look like?
Anyone in the chat know who it looks like?
You?
No, it looks like one of the Carnage House production brothers.
Oh,
maybe
Dougal. Cameron Dougal.
Yeah, maybe Dougal or Alexander Cameron. I sent this to him today, and it's like, I had no idea you were convicted of sexual assault.
Yeah.
So basically, we have two contrasting stories here. I'll bring back here. We have a man who abducted and raped a young girl in a shopping centre. He's going to be eligible for parole in less than 2 years now because he's already been in custody. And then we've got an awkward, shy teenager who just wanted to make a friend, who he made the mistake of touching a girl, but as soon as he, not in any, didn't touch her in any private area, but just, and he realized as soon as he did it that it was wrong. But he's apparently facing 10 years in jail and on the sex offender register. So it seems to me that if a feminist feels like she's threatened, then that's a greater crime than basically a young girl getting raped.
Yeah, pretty much. Like, they've got a really warped sense of justice now, and this shit's just so messed up.
Yeah.
The way they deal with these crimes.
Yeah. D is in the chat. We're going to be seeing each other tomorrow for the annual March for the Babies, which is the 10th anniversary this year, trying to overturn Victoria's Abortion Law Reform Act, which was the model for all the abortion laws that have been rolled out in states nationwide, which in New South Wales you actually had some success in watering it down. So it's much harder to kill babies a day before they're born. Yeah.
They're still pretty crap, the abortion. I mean, they didn't ban gender-selective abortions. They didn't ban a whole bunch of stuff that.
Yeah. And they didn't define a pregnant person as a woman.
Yeah, it's just a person that's pregnant. Like, the fuck is that?
Well, I'll bid you well now, Samraat. You stayed safe. You didn't cop an egg or anything.
No cheap for people.
Yes. Well, you're in Hyde Park, aren't you?
Yeah. Central Park, not Hyde Park.
Central Park.
Maybe I threw them off and they went the other way.
Oh, some disinformation there.
Yeah.
All right. All right. I'll catch you later, Samraat. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me. Bye, everyone.
Bye. All right. Now I'll just bring back my other setting here, which I think that I've got it here. No. Oh, you're seeing it without a green screen. No, that's not it. There we go here. No. There we go. Yep, there we go here. Alright, back to the single set here. Now, as I alluded to, tomorrow, well, there's actually two pro-life marches. We promoted them at the end of the Uncockables last night. Tomorrow here in Melbourne, Saturday 12th of October 2019, it's the 10th annual March for the Babies, which begins at 1 p.m. at Victoria's Treasury Gardens. The pro-life advocates, we march from there to Victoria's Parliament House. The march is led every year by Bernie Finn, Liberal MLC. He's probably the most prominent pro-life politician in a major party anywhere in Australia. In Brisbane, there's the annual March for Life, which begins at 2 p.m. Queensland time, because remember there's daylight savings times now. Queensland doesn't have it. So that begins at the Queen's Gardens in Brisbane, and they march to Speaker's Corner. So if you want to campaign to overturn these states' radical abortion until birth laws, attending these marches is a great place to begin your involvement. So I will be at the Melbourne March for the Babies, and so will a lot of other Melbourne-based alt media personalities. I know in the Brisbane one, at least the Dusty Bogan will be covering the March for Life up there. Now, I'd encourage, as I said, anyone who wants to overturn not just the Victoria's abortion until birth laws, but also because we've just had euthanasia introduced in the state of Victoria as well, that's come into effect. Now, this is a family friendly and G-rated event, so please don't bring along any gory signs of chopped up babies and blood, and that, because there is young children there, and we're cherishing life, not trying to expose the horror of death to everyone. And also, please try not to swear or direct profane abuse at the counter-protesters. Please film your participation in the march, so that if there's any bad behaviour which takes place, there is a lot of video evidence that can be used either online or elsewhere. Now, there's a whole bunch of these local Antifa socialist groups that are planning to counter-protest. I've been to previous ones, and they've said some vile and hateful things, but we want our message to be one of love, not hate. We do hate abortion and violence against the unborn, but ours is a message of love. We love life, we love families, love children, love bringing new life into this world. We love mothers, and we are even called upon to love those who hate us. So please call out anyone at the march who does not act appropriately, and I'm sure nobody is not going to be triggered by any of the hateful words. We're not snowflakes, unlike the counter-protesters who, well, they're attending there because they're triggered. And as the organisers have posted, I'm not a Christian, but I think this is worth reading out. Do not be overcome by evil, but overcome evil with good. The Apostle Paul, Romans 12:21. So Dia, if you're still in the chat, I read out a Bible verse on Wilmsfront. So first thing for everything there. Now I'm on the home stretch here, so it's your last chance to contribute or participate over on Entropy. So make sure, I'll put the link in there one more time, just in case you want to hop on over. I've minimized the screen, so I've got to get back in here as well. There's the Entropy link. And also, there's been Extinction Rebellion protests all week, and they are continuing on Saturday. There were reports that Extinction Rebellion protesters are planning a nudie run, which many of us feared was going to, they were going to try and gate crash the march. But I have got some information on, it's called Camp Carlton. So it's breakfast at 8 a.m, lunch at 12 p.m, dinner at 8 p.m, with a rebel kitchen, BYO plate, mug, and cutlery. Well, I hope they're not bringing plastic ones there. They're all reusable, because... So at 10 a.m, there's the nudie parade getting vulnerable about the climate, meet at Carlton Gardens, feeling vulnerable about the climate and ecological murder, us too, so we're going to put it all on display. Get nudie down to the knickers. We will paint our bodies with the message and logos, then dance through the streets and get people talking. Wow, call out to body painters, join us. This is a footpath-based disruptive action with a very low likelihood of arrest. Well, we'll see about that. And it says more up here, more rebellion, and heaps for the kids who we're doing this for. So basically saying it's a family-friendly event. Can you believe it or not? And, well, they did say there it's nude down to your underwear, but I don't know, do you really trust some of these people that you've seen on the news this week doing these sort of Gaia climate dances? I mean, they're pretty strange. I will say that. So that's what's also happening there at Melbourne. And also, if you want to make sure that you have a healthy day there, please bring a water bottle so you can keep your fluids up, and a hat and sunscreen, because I forgot to bring sunscreen previous years, and I have got sunburnt because the weather is going to be good tomorrow. It's going to be a perfect spring day, which those of you who are Christian will say that it is God's sign that you're doing his work. And going back to, we've seen on so many occasions environmental virtue signalers turn out to be hypocrites by leaving messes at places. So they do give out helium, pink and blue balloons. So if you are holding one, don't release it into the air. So don't contribute to the litter, but you don't need to virtue signal about it. Just do it quietly because it's the right thing. So either tie it to your wrist so it doesn't actually fly away, and at the end, please take the balloon home. If you're there with young family, I'm sure your children would like to have a bit of fun with that balloon, or pop it silently away from everyone and put it in the bin. So I look forward to seeing you, as many of you there, standing for human life there tomorrow, protecting the vulnerable, the unborn, the elderly, those with disability. All life is precious, and that's the message of tomorrow. We're pro-human. We want to preserve life. We're optimistic about the future. We want as many humans to have the best chance at life as possible. So I look forward to seeing many of you there as possible. And Adia, are you still there at the chat? Because I was going to say, because we were talking about that young awkward boy who has now been convicted of sexual assault for mistakenly touching a girl. I think tomorrow when I greet you, I might just give you a hug, or maybe give you a peck on the cheek, and we'll do a live experiment to see if you feel that you're in danger. How does that sound? Yes, we'll test out on an actual woman how that works. Now, of course, this is it for the Australian Alt Media lineup this week. I hope to bring you a Wilmsfront episode Sunday evening at 7 p.m. Melbourne time on the Tim Wilms YouTube channel, but you'll definitely be seeing me at 9 p.m. over on Dia Beltran's YouTube channel. I am debating Baden Motti about what's the best way to have the right in Australia working together. So this is the third in a series of Sunday night debates at 9 p.m. Melbourne time that Dia has hosted. So it should be quite an interesting and I hope constructive discussion. Then, of course, Monday night, it is XYZ Live at the new time of 9 p.m. Melbourne time over on the Maddie Rose Live YouTube channel. And then, of course, Tuesday evening, Trans-Tasman Talk with my New Zealand counterpart, editor of Right Minds, Dewey de Boer. That's streamed on the Unshackled YouTube channel. There's a lot of YouTube channels I know you've got to subscribe to, but not only have you got to subscribe to them, you've got to click the bell to notifications because otherwise you don't know when we go live. There is, of course, on its own dedicated channel now, Detonation with my colleague Steel Archer. That streams episodes most weekdays at around 11 a.m. Australian Melbourne time. So if you're free in the mornings, make sure you tune in to Detonation, and it's continuing its humanist topic, or should I say theme. And of course, you can also see on the Unshackled main channel, I'm posting highlights of Wilmsfront episodes in the forms of Wilmsfront's features, and it's also the home of the report from Tiger Mountain by Richard Wollstonecroft. I do have a dedicated show website, which is timwilliams.com, where you can check out the archive of episodes, and you can also subscribe to the podcast version of this show. It's on Apple, Spotify, TuneIn Radio, and also Stitcher, so you can catch up on this in audio form as well. Then Wednesday nights, I'm back with another Wilmsfront at 7 p.m. Melbourne time, and Dia Beltran is on with her regular weekly live stream at 8:15 p.m. Melbourne time on her channel. And of course, Thursday nights, unmissable. Australia's premier alt media program, The Uncuckables, live 8:30 p.m. Melbourne time. Our audience just keeps growing and growing. It's even if everybody who follows alt media can't tune in every night, they definitely tune in for The Uncuckables. So we just had another blast of an episode last night, so make sure that if you missed it, or you should anyway, subscribe to the Uncuckables YouTube channel, and also visit theuncuckables.com to check out the archive, because we just did episode 30. It's also in a podcast form as well, and there also is an Uncuckables newsletter as well. And of course, cannot do this without your support. So you're always generous throughout the weeks with your super chats, but you can also take out an Unshackled premium membership. You can go to theunshackled.net/membership, or you can send us a donation at theunshackled.net/donate. We are still on patreon.com/theunshackled, paypal.me/theunshackled, subscribestar.com/theunshackled, and we also have an online store featuring our most popular merchandise, which is theunshackled.net/store. Please follow me on social media. I'm on Facebook at facebook.com/Wilmsfront, twitter.com/Wilmsfront. I'm on free speech social media, gab.com/TimWilms, and minds.com/TimWilms. I'll see many of you tomorrow for the March of the Babies. Stay tuned for both our written and audio-visual reports. We'll see if we can get a live stream of the march going, but I'm not going to promise that at this stage, but we still will have extensive coverage. So I will see some of you then, and I will definitely see a lot of you on Sunday night in some form or another. All right, take care, everyone. Enjoy your weekend.
Thanks for tuning in to Wilmsfront. Visit timwilms.com or Rational Rise TV to view the archive of episodes. And keep visiting theunshackled.net to view all our shows, and to keep up with the latest real news and analysis.